Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, our voters, to get to know our local candidates a little bit better and hear what they have to say about the issues that are important to us. And this is all leading up to our general election on Tuesday, November 6th. Now, today's guest is Buddy Bennett, and he is running for City Commission. Welcome, Buddy.
Hey, welcome.
I thought we'd start out with you just telling us a little bit about yourself and your history here in Frankfort and why you have chosen to run for City Commission.
Sure. My father moved to Frankfort about 70 years ago. He came from Mississippi, then to Memphis, and my mom and dad settled in Frankfort. They ended up on a little house on Lindsay Avenue, right off East Main Street, and then by the time they had 8 kids, we had outgrown that 3-bedroom house. We moved down to a house on 3rd Street, which ended up being the local hangout for, for everyone that went to Frankfort High from 1966 to 1984. There was at least one, if not 3 Bennetts in Frankfort High for—
Go Panthers.
That's right, for 18 years. And I graduated with a business degree from Eastern Kentucky University and moved back here, spent 3 years with the Boy Scouts, and I've been currently employed with Lee Building Products, which is formerly Lee Brick and Block, for the last 24 years. The reason I'm running for City Commission is because I am passionate about what goes in the hole down in the 6.3 acres down there in Parcel 2, or Parcel B. I've been a strong advocate of waiting to hear from what City Visions had promised, and I don't want to get ahead of you, but I want to do a lot of listening and hear all the different voices in Frankfort. And I think that I have the roots here in this town, and I think that I understand the ebbs and flows of this town because I've lived here for so long, and that's why I chose to run. Great.
Well, yeah, we will get into other issues, but first I want to hear from you. What are the responsibilities of the City Commission, and as a commissioner, what would your responsibilities be?
Well, the main thing that the City Commission does is they set the budget for the city, and they oversee all the different departments within the city government. The biggest hurdle that the City Commission and the city is facing right now are the unfunded liabilities with the pensions. We have an aging population in this town. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of millennials that are moving to town, and that's something I want to change. Also, the City Commission, makes ordinances and sets rules and regulations for the city, and that's basically the responsibilities of the City Commission.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, we're off to a really good start because you've already mentioned a lot of things that I want to talk about in detail a little bit. But first, I do want to say that inevitably there will be a newcomer to the City Commission. So what do you consider the advantages of a new blood?
Fresh perspective on eyes. Sometimes when you get in a position for a long time, you get set in your ways, and you don't really try and maybe look towards the future, and you start managing for right now instead of 5 years from now, 10 years from now. One of the things that I plan on doing that I don't know that has been done, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I plan on putting together a joint task force committee between the city and the county to create a long-range plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 15-year plan, and a 20-year plan. So we can sit down and say, hey, this is what we want our community to look like in 20 years from now. 20 years from now, I'll be 71 years old. My oldest son will be 42. And we're not going to be here forever. And that's why I think it's important that it is our duty that we leave something for our kids in this town for them to come home to and for them to raise their families.
Okay. Well, do you see that, or what do you see as the biggest issue facing the City Commission right now that you would have to face in your term?
The biggest issue right now is the hole.
Okay.
And I call it the hole.
Have you seen what the City Vision's proposed plan? Is that something you support?
I went to the City Vision's meeting at the library, and they echo a lot of the things that, if you go back and look at the tape of the first debate we had at the hotel, I was a strong advocate of multifamily dwellings and putting people in that space. And quite frankly, that was one of the recommendations. The connectivity aspect that they have done with the walking trails and the bike trails and everything like that, trying to connect Frankfort and making it more accessible, and opening the pedestrian bridge to Taylor Avenue is a great idea. And even as something as simple as painting the railroad bridge going underneath the Wilkinson Boulevard there, just something that would make our town look a little bit nicer. If you look at Midway, there was also a thing in there about the railroad tracks. If you look at Midway has put a nice stone wall all the way down the middle of Main Street, not really to separate the railroad tracks, but to kind of accent the railroad tracks. And I don't know that we actually have the space to do that, but we need something like that to kind of break that space up.
Okay.
It's a small thing aesthetically, but it works.
Okay. So this sounds like a lot of great ideas. Do you have any idea as far as a funding mechanism?
Sure. Well, I think the MOA from the cabinet has said that we're going to have a P3. So I don't think there's much, which is a public-private partnership. I don't think there's much straying from that, because what they're doing is they're giving us this land, and we're giving them an MOA and saying, okay, this is how we're going to fund. This is what we intend to do. This is our timeline, and this is how we intend to fund it. So, there may be some negotiations and some room to wiggle and maybe put a TIF in at some point. But right now, in the beginning and the onset of this, it's going to be a P3.
Okay. So on down the road in the future, let's say the redevelopment project is successful. It's generating some revenue for us. Revenue that we're not used to having now. What do you propose that we would do with that revenue? Would you propose lowering taxes, or keeping taxes the same and improving services, or just something totally different?
Well, that's a hypothetical, and I can come out and say that I am against raising taxes. That is the last effort. Money's pretty simple, and the budget can be pretty simple when you think about it. You have a pot of money, and you have liabilities that you must pay. Okay, things you got to take care of, and then after that, then you've got whatever's left over. You've got to, dole it out however you want to, however you see fit. If there's not enough money in that pot right there, you've got to do one of two things. You've got to cut expenses, or you've got to increase your revenue and increase the revenue stream. It's my contention that the way that we're going to make downtown work is by increasing the revenue stream.
Okay.
And that's by getting people living downtown, putting houses or condominiums or whatever back on our tax rolls. You look at downtown Frankfort right now, and there are so many properties downtown that are either federal or state, and they're not paying tax. And that's a real hindrance to the Frankfort Independent School District.
Sure.
It's a real hindrance to the city of Frankfort, because there's some large areas there. One thing that I would like to look at is the possibility of getting the Watts building back returned to the city of Frankfort. It's my understanding there might be 7.
Explain what that is.
The Watts building is the federal building that is right next to the old Capitol.
Okay.
It's my understanding that maybe 7 or 11 people work there. Not many people still work there, but it is a huge swath of land, and it is right in the way was right in the path of Washington Street, being able to connect back to that parcel of land over, that is being given to us by the state. We could easily move those 7 or 8 people, or however many it is, out to, say, the Social Security office on the East-West Connector. The federal government is in the business of getting rid of, surplus property that's actually costing them money. And I think that is something that we really need to consider, because having that extra land down there right next to the old Capitol would just give us more space to do whatever we wanted to do.
Okay. Well, you continue to address some questions that I have. I do know that the City Commission currently is preparing to vote to increase tax rates. And as our fiscal court has done recently, and both of our school districts have done recently. So, and this is more than likely as a result of having to contribute more for the pension. So that's going to be happening. So what can we do as a community, as you have said, to generate more revenue so that we can minimize these future tax increases? Besides the downtown area, is there anything else that we could be doing to generate the revenue?
We've got to become more business friendly.
Yeah.
We've got to rely on a lot of the organizations that work with city and local government, and listen to them, and try and promote business, whether it's either in the city or the county. We've had some success, and a company has just come moved I think 30 people down into the building there at the corner of St. Clair Mall and Main Street.
The McClure building?
McClure building. Lost my train of thought for a second. But we've had some success doing that. So we're getting a little occupational tax there. But this business of raising taxes is a direct result of us sitting on our hands for 30 years. We've basically had zero growth in Franklin County for 30 years as far as population wise. If you take into account the rate of growth that is expected, we've had negative growth. I travel about 17, 18 counties in central Kentucky in my job, and I have watched county after county after county grow smartly, and they are not having the same problems that we're having. You look at I think it's 19,000 people that leave Franklin County every day, and they go to Shelby, they go to Woodford, they go to Scott, they go to Owen, they go to Louisville. People drive from Louisville to come here, Spencer County, to come to work here. So we've got to figure out what we've got to do as a community. And I think this City Vision thing is a start to provide the things that people want to have in their community, where they can eat here, where they can work here, and where they can relax here, and make it a place that people want to live.
Yeah. So do you have any initial ideas for what that would be? Because in the primary, I know that you spoke about, as well as several of the other candidates spoke about the population growth being stagnant, and about the need for change and spurring that change. So, what do you think that Frankfort needs to implement to ensure that we can spur that kind of growth? What does that change look like?
Well, we've got to make it easier, number one, for people to do business building with either houses or building multifamily units. Right now, the big trend in Franklin County is no work condominiums. And I can point you to Berry Hill. I can point you to Sycamore Crossing. I can point you to out here at behind Coles. A lot of people, the millennials and the older generation, they don't want to mow their grass. They want a house to upkeep. Okay, so we've got to find a way and now some people do. So we've got to find a way to make development on some of our properties a little easier. And I can tell you this: I had a customer that did a building here in Franklin County. And I said, how was the process? He said, the process was great. The people were super. He said, but it took me 3 months longer to do this in Franklin County than it does in any other county I've built this exact same building. So, you know, I think we have I want to streamline the process to where people want to do business. You know, and I know builders that say, I'll never build in Franklin County just because it takes so long and it's such a hassle.
Yeah.
So we've got to make it easier on them.
Yeah.
And they'll build in Shelby County. I had one builder tell me he can build a house in Shelby County and build the same house in Franklin County. He can make $20,000 more in Shelby County than he can in Franklin County. So.
Well, all the places that you mentioned, those condos, there's new, and so do you think there's people in our community who don't like that and maybe have a fear of this growth because they like small town?
There's definitely a faction of people that yeah, I mean, everybody's different.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a faction of people that want things to remain the same and have a fear of urban sprawl and have a fear of, you know, that I like my small town. But again, I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. This isn't about me and it's not about you. Yeah. It's about everybody that's coming behind us. You know, selfishly, we want things to remain the same. And if we say, well, we want things to remain the same, well, 25 years from now, statistics tell me I'm going to be dead. And if we don't do anything, what's Frankfort going to look like if we keep declining in population in 20 years from now? And that's why I revert to the long-range plan. You know, how big do we want to be? I don't want to be as big as Scott County. I don't want to be that big. You know, I don't want to have the sprawl that Scott County has. But there's definitely land that can be used, and downtown we can build up. You know, we can put, you know, condominiums that are, you know, easily accessible. We could put that have like a drugstore down there or in a small Whole Foods market or something like that. We can build those up and be good stewards of the land by doing that. So, you know, that's my point.
So besides housing, what are some things that we can do to attract more young people to our area?
We now I'm put you on a spot.
Okay. I'm not a young person, by the way.
Well, I mean, we've got to figure out a way to keep high-speed internet and get the high-speed internet and the Wi-Fi that is reliable, that is the best that it can be, fiber optic. You know, Louisville's putting in the Google fiber optic all through the city, and that's what the millennials want. They want their tablets.
Agreed.
And they want their phones, and they want the high-speed internet, and they want the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
You know, and I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it. I enjoy it, and I get frustrated when my Wi-Fi speeds are not what they're supposed to be.
I do too.
So that's the main thing.
Yeah.
And I think the millennials are going to look at, you know, that's one of the things they're going to look at is, you know, what's the internet speed,
right.
And then they're going to look at what's around me.
Yeah.
What do I have to do? Where can I go get a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
You know, where can I go have a beer? Where can I go, you know, a craft beer or whatever? You know, that's where I see a lot of the markets going to is to craft beer little places. So,
sure.
You know, that's what the millennials are looking for.
Okay. Well, I'll put in a little plug. I will tell you that we are working on our internet. We are in the process. We're going to be upping our speeds.
All right.
And our cable telecom department has been working on a huge project where we've been upgrading all of our equipment. All the equipment that's out in the field right now is 20 years old. So they have gotten approval from the board, and for the last couple of months throughout the summer, we've been working in different neighborhoods to replace all of that equipment so that we have better service.
Super.
And we're also in our first phase of implementing our fiber to the home project.
Well, that can't do anything but help.
Yeah. So we're excited about those things. And we're totally on board with that. We totally agree that the high-speed internet is huge to this community, and we'll keep working to make that. So thank you for that. I want to go on to, speaking of the plant board, I know that it would take a change in legislation, but do you think the county judge and the fiscal court should be able to nominate and appoint members to the Frankfort Plant Board?
Oh, I wouldn't see why not. I think that because they're receiving services too. They're not, and if the legislation changed, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. And the question becomes how many. The question becomes how many do they get, and what percent of the people in the city are receive our services. Receive service, and what percent of the city, people in the county receive the services. But I wouldn't be against it. No, I mean, if listen, here's the deal. If the city and the county can't work together, we're never going to do anything. And evidence of that is this P3 downtown. If the city and the county had not been able to come together and work together, then that would have never happened. So I think it's the right thing to do, and it's a pretty easy decision.
Sure. Well, what about industry? Do you think somebody from industry should have a seat on the plant board? As far as our
I think people on the plant board, should have an understanding of how energy is bought and sold on the grid. Okay? Mm-hmm. I think people on the plant board should look at the lowest cost, most environmentally friendly energy in the portfolio and be committed to buying that. I'm lucky. When I say lucky, I was poor when I was young. There was 8 kids. Mm. My dad made $29,000 a year. All right. As I've gotten older, I've been in a successful career. So, when my electric bill comes around, I just pay it. There are people that literally in this town that have electric heat when it's really cold they were having $800 and $900 bills last year. I can't in good conscience tell somebody they're going to have to pay 30% more for the energy that I decided to purchase from KYMEA because I wanted my portfolio to look better or look different than what it did. That's who I want on the board. I want people that are going to buy the cleanest, the cleanest and cheapest energy possible.
Most cost effective for our ratepayers.
That's who needs to be on the board.
And that's the mission.
And they don't need to be from industry. They could be from, as long as they understand how energy's bought and sold on the grid, that's fine.
Right. Okay, we'll move on to business stuff. How can city commissioners incentivize and attract new businesses?
Well, it just depends upon how low we're willing to go. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously by tax breaks and tax incentives by putting new business here. There's not a lot of space to relocate new business other than some of the spaces downtown, and I'm talking factory type, factory type businesses. Mm-hmm. You look back, and I think it was 1980. The tax incentive that Martha Lane Collins gave to Toyota, and everybody said she was crazy for doing it.
Yeah.
And Scott County is, they're one of the richest counties in the state. They've grown, and now some people may say they've grown too much, but it brought people, and there's plenty of things to do in Scott County.
Yeah.
They have some really nice facilities. So that's more. I For me, I think that's more of a county question.
Okay.
Because the county's got the land.
Yeah.
They've got the industrial park, and until that's annexed or anything like that, I think that's more of a county question. Now, we can incentivize businesses to come into the central business district by giving them, a tax break, or helping them, apply for federal grants, or historic preservation loans or something like that. But I think that's more of a question for the county.
Okay. One more question before we wrap it up. Do you think the City Commission as a public government office is transparent enough?
From what I've seen, it's been pretty transparent. There's been a lot of litigation that's been going on over the last. There's still a lot of litigation that's going on right now. They've been in closed session a bunch, and that's what I'm about. I'm about transparency, and I don't really mix words, and I don't really pull punches. I'll tell you how I feel, and I don't know that the commission could have been any more transparent than they have been because of the litigation. So I can't really fault them for that. I would have just done, a couple of things. I would have done some things differently, and I want a commission that is conversational and not confrontational. There seems to be some personality clashes within the city commission, all the way down the line, and that is, that's something that if I'm elected, I'd like to kind of squash and just be able to be conversational with somebody and disagree with them without getting personal and making personal insults and attacks.
Well, that sounds like a good plan. Now is your opportunity to talk directly to our viewers. You can look in that camera there and tell them why you are the best candidate to be on our city commission and why they should vote for you.
I'm Buddy Bennett, and I'm a lifelong resident of Franklin County. I love my community. I love the people, and I ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you for coming by.
you.
I know our viewers appreciate always hearing from our candidates, so they have a better idea of taking that knowledge to the polls and making an informed choice. So viewers, I'll remind you to go vote on Tuesday, November 6th. And after you vote, go home and tune into Channel 10. We'll have live election returns coming to you from the county clerk's office. So it's election season again. This is your opportunity to get informed and then go voice your choice. We'll see you next time on Meet the Candidates.